everybody, my name is Aiden, and yes, you are seeing my face and hearing my voice for the first time in one of these videos. The final week of the 2023 through 24 NFL season is upon us with a lot of playoff implications on the line. And today I preview, discuss the stakes of, and predict the final score of each matchup of Week 18. The stakes discussed assume correctness of my prior picks. For example, if I predict a team to be in a winner-go-home situation, I'll predict that team's game as if they're in a winner-go-home situation. Now, before we begin, I recap my picks from last week as you're going to see my face disappear for a brief moment here. Overall, I had a good week. I went 13-3. A few games I'd like to note. Miami at Baltimore, which I expected to be the game of the week, was a major disappointment as the Dolphins were not remotely competitive. I picked Philadelphia to beat Arizona by 10. Yeah, it might be time for me to quit the Eagles. Before the season, I thought they would win the Super Bowl, but now I'm ready to admit their absolute ceiling is the divisional round, and they probably won't even make it that far at this rate. Saints Bucs was also a bad pick. I mean, it was just an incredibly disappointing effort by the Bucs. And finally, Seattle gave up 400 yards of offense to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's awful. But other than those four games, I was pretty accurate with my picks. The first matchup of Week 18 is on Saturday, January 6th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it features the 9-7 Pittsburgh Steelers and the 13-3 Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers are currently on a two-game winning streak, amassing 865 total yards of offense in the past 2 weeks against Cincinnati and Seattle. The Steelers won the previous meeting back in October, 17-10, and need to win again this week to stay alive for the AFC's 7th seed. And I believe they will do so. Baltimore has officially clinched the AFC's number 1 seed with their dominant 56-19 victory over the Miami Dolphins and will likely rest their starters in this game. So give me the Steelers to win this game 16-13. Later on Saturday, January 6th at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, we have an AFC South battle with crucial implications for both sides between the 9-7 Houston Texans and the 9-7 Indianapolis Colts. The winner of this game will clinch a postseason berth either as the 4th seed and the AFC South champion or the 7th seed, depending on the result of the Jacksonville, Tennessee game the next day, but we'll get to that one later. The Texans are coming off a 26-3 win over the Tennessee Titans, in which their defense limited Tennessee to just 187 total yards of offense and recorded 6 sacks, one of which was a strip sack and fumble return for a touchdown. The Colts, on the other hand, are coming off a close 23-20 win over the Las Vegas Raiders and are 6-2 in their last 8 after starting 3-5. The Colts also won the previous meeting back in Week 2 by a score of 31-20, and I believe this matchup could go either way. But since that Week 2 matchup, C.J. Stroud has really come into his own, and I believe he will be the one to step up at the end of the game and make the difference, giving the Texans the victory by a score of 27-24. That is both of the Saturday games, which then leads us to the Sunday 1:00 p.m. slate, beginning with the 9-7 Jacksonville Jaguars and the 5-11 Tennessee Titans. The Titans are mathematically eliminated from postseason contention, whereas the Jags, with a win, would clinch the AFC South crown and the 4th seed. Otherwise, they're probably eliminated. And simply put, the Titans are not a good team. They're 28th in total points and 27th in total yards of offense with a -7 turnover differential on the season. On the flip side, the Jaguars have been struggling mightily ever since their star quarterback Trevor Lawrence suffered an ankle injury against the Bengals in Week 13. Although they did defeat the hapless Carolina Panthers last week by a score of 26-0, there is uncertainty as to whether or not Lawrence will play this week. But honestly, I think the Jaguars can win this game, even with backup C.J. Beathard at quarterback. All season, the Jaguars' defense has been great at taking the ball away and defending the run. So I believe this will be a messy, low-scoring game that the Jaguars will take 24-17. We then have our first NFC matchup of the week with the 7-9 Atlanta Falcons and the 8-8 New Orleans Saints. Atlanta is coming off a brutal 37-17 loss against the Chicago Bears, in which their defense lit up 192 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, and they are now 2-6 on the road this season. On the flip side, New Orleans is coming off an impressive 23-13 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in which their defense dominated with 4 takeaways. Both teams are still alive and could win the NFC South and clinch the 4 seed with a win and a Tampa Bay Buccaneers loss to Carolina. More on that game later. Both of these teams are solid defensively and not as solid offensively, and I expect this to be a low-scoring game. But because Atlanta's bad on the road and the Saints are at home here, I'm going to pick the Saints from this game 21-17. Back to the AFC side of things, we have the 11-5 Cleveland Browns and the 8-8 Cincinnati Bengals. This game has zero implications on the AFC playoff picture, as the Browns are locked into the 5th seed, and the Bengals have been mathematically eliminated at this point. The Browns will be resting their starters, so who knows, right? Because the Bengals might be resting their starters too. So I'm not going to waste too much time on this one. I'll say the Bengals win this game 23-20. We then have my 7-9 Minnesota Vikings and the 11-5 Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions have already clinched their division and are currently the NFC's 3rd seed, but they are still alive for the 2nd seed if Dallas loses to Washington and Philadelphia loses to the Giants. Both games will be at 4:25. I'll get to them later. But if both of those things happen and Detroit wins this game, they would move up to the 2, and I think Dallas would drop to the 3. But that is highly unlikely. Minnesota, although not mathematically eliminated, needs pretty much a miracle to make the postseason at this point. And of course, that miracle must involve winning this game. And the Vikings, simply put, do not have an NFL starting quarterback. As evidenced by last week's brutal 33-10 loss to the Green Bay Packers, and have had a carousel at the position since starting quarterback Kirk Cousins suffered an Achilles injury back in Week 8. After that injury, they went to Jaron Hall. He got hurt, so they went to Josh Dobbs. He was good for a couple games. The next couple games, not so good, so then they went to Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins couldn't stop turning the ball over, so then they went to Jaron Hall, who was so bad he got benched after one half, so they went back to Nick Mullins again. I don't even know who they're going to be starting at quarterback this week. But regardless, Detroit should win this game easily. I'll say 38-13. Up next is the 6-10 New York Jets and 4-12 New England Patriots. And if the rumors are indeed true, this will be Bill Belichick's last game as the head coach in New England. And how poetic that it is against the Jets, the team he currently has a 16-game win streak against. I imagine he'll want to finish his Patriots tenure by, for the umpteenth time, owning the Jets. So I'll say New England takes it 13-6. Wait, you wanted actual analysis for this game? I mean, what analysis is there to be done? I mean, obviously, this game is going to suck. And to close out the 1 o'clock slate, we have the 8-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 2-14 Carolina Panthers. Tampa Bay was riding high going into last week before a 23-13 thud at home against the New Orleans Saints. And they now find themselves in a position where they need to win this game to clinch the division and the 4 seed. Otherwise, they are out if my Falcons-Saints prediction prevails. And the good news for them, they are playing a glorified XFL team. The Panthers' hideousness does not need elaboration. So I'll take Tampa Bay to win this game 27-9. We then move ahead to the 4:25 slate, beginning with the 9-7 Chicago Bears and the 8-8 Green Bay Packers. The Packers, although they can't win the division, can clinch either the 6th seed or the 7th seed in the NFC, depending on the result of Rams 49ers, which will happen concurrently. More on that matchup later. Unfortunately for Chicago, they have been mathematically eliminated from postseason contention. However, they can play spoiler and eliminate Green Bay, if, of course, they win this game. The Packers won the previous meeting back in Week 1 in blowout fashion, 38-20, but a lot has changed since that game. For the Bears, their defense has really come into their own, holding 6 of their last 7 opponents to 20 points or fewer after surrendering nearly 30 per game the first 4 weeks of the season. And for Green Bay, Jordan Love has really come on of late. In their past 7 games, Love has 16 passing touchdowns to only 1 interception over a 5-2 stretch. Green Bay was in this exact situation last season in Week 18 against Detroit, and if you remember, they lost 20-16 in franchise legend Aaron Rodgers' final game in Green Bay. They remember that, and I'm sure they are determined not to let that happen again this year. Matt LaFleur is 9-0 against Chicago as the Packers head coach, and I expect him to improve to 10-0 this week. This will not be a blowout like last meeting. I believe Chicago's defense will keep this close, but Green Bay will pull this one out 24-17. Moving on, we have the 11-5 Philadelphia Eagles against the 5-11 New York Giants. Obviously, the Giants are eliminated from postseason contention, but like Chicago, I imagine they would love to mess things up for Philadelphia by winning this game. Philadelphia's already clinched a playoff spot, but the NFC East title is still in play for them, depending on the result of Dallas versus Washington, which will happen concurrently. More on that matchup later. And if the Eagles win and the Cowboys lose, the Eagles would clinch the NFC East and the 2 seed. Otherwise, they're the 5th seed and likely headed to Tampa for Super Wildcard Weekend. The records of these two teams would indicate this is an easy win for Philadelphia. However, this is not the case. Philadelphia is falling apart. They are 1-4 in their last 5. Their offense, given their talent, is wildly underwhelming of late, and their defense is, simply put, a fucking mess. Since they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead in Week 11, they have allowed 29.9 points per game in their last 6. This defense couldn't stop Drew Lock when they needed to a few weeks ago. I mentioned that the results of Cowboys-Commanders will determine whether or not Philadelphia can take the NFC East, and spoiler alert, I think Dallas will be up big in the 3rd quarter, and then Philadelphia, with this in mind, will smartly bench Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, all those guys, other notable starters, in the 3rd quarter. And for that reason, I believe that whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Tommy DeVito starting for the Giants this week, I think it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. They will have a big day throwing the ball against this Eagles defense. So give me the Giants to win this one 27-14. Next up is the 10-6 Kansas City Chiefs and the 5-11 Los Angeles Chargers. There's nothing on the line here, as the Chiefs are locked in as the AFC's 3rd seed and will likely rest their starters, and obviously the Chargers are eliminated from postseason contention. I don't want to waste too much time talking about this one, so I'll say Chargers win 17-13 for their interim head coach. Back to the NFC side, we have the 11-5 Dallas Cowboys and the 4-12 Washington Commanders. Now, with a win, Dallas would lock up the NFC East and the NFC's 2nd seed. Washington obviously has nothing to play for. Dallas, although somewhat sluggish on the road, should easily handle this one. Washington's defense is hideous, allowing more yards and more points than any team in the NFL. Dak and Dallas have cooked this defense back on Thanksgiving 45-10, and I fully expect them to do so again, while their defense tees off on Sam Howell, who has a league-leading 19 interceptions and 60-plus sacks. Dallas will win this game handily 37-10. Next up, we have the 9-7 Los Angeles Rams and the 12-4 San Francisco 49ers. The Rams have already clinched a wild card berth, but with a win, they can guarantee they finish as the NFC 6th seed, whereas with a loss and a Green Bay victory over Chicago, they would drop to the 7th seed. The 49ers will be resting their starters, as they've already clinched the NFC's number 1 seed. Even though they should win, I am a bit skeptical of picking the Rams in this one, given that they are 0-9 in their previous 9 regular season games against the 49ers. But the Rams are on a heater, as they're 6-1 in their last 7 games, averaging over 29 points per game in that stretch. The Rams need this one, and I think they're going to get it, with a win 27-24. We then have a game between the 8-8 Denver Broncos and the 7-9 Las Vegas Raiders. Neither of these teams can make the playoffs, so that renders this game entirely meaningless. Jarrett Stidham versus Aiden O'Connell. Why does this quarterback matchup seem like an allegory for the 2023-24 season as a whole? The Raiders have won each of the last 7 meetings. They beat Denver earlier this season, and I believe they will end the 2023 season on a high note by beating them again, 16-9. We conclude the 425 slate with the 8-8 Seattle Seahawks on the road against the 4-12 Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, although eliminated from postseason contention, pulled off a wild upset, 35-31 in Philadelphia last week, and surely they will look to play the role of the spoiler against their rival Seattle, who with a win and a Green Bay loss would get them into the postseason. I don't believe Green Bay will lose, but anything can happen, so the Seahawks will treat this as a meaningful game. The Seahawks are coming off a 30-23 loss to Pittsburgh at home, in which they let up 468 yards of offense against the Steelers. I mean, that's bad. And although their defense isn't as horrendous as that of Philadelphia, I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona breaks 30 again. In fact, I think they will, and they'll win this game 31-28. Lastly, we have the game of the week on Sunday Night Football between the 10-6 Buffalo Bills and the 11-5 Miami Dolphins. And the stakes are simple. The winner of this game clinches the AFC East title and holds the second seed in the AFC playoffs, whereas the loser is at best the sixth seed, or in Buffalo's case, they would be eliminated from the playoffs altogether. It feels like a long time ago, but Buffalo thoroughly dominated Miami in the previous meeting back in Week 4 by a score of 48-20, and that game is one of a few examples of Miami struggling against potent competition. Another example would be last week's 56-19 debacle in Baltimore. And against teams currently above 500, the Dolphins are 1-4 with a negative 84-point differential. It's worth noting that all four of those losses were away from Hard Rock Stadium, whereas the lone victory was a 22-20 win over the Dallas Cowboys at Hard Rock Stadium 2 weeks ago. Currently, the Dolphins' defense is quite banged up. Star pass rusher Jalen Phillips went down for the year a month and a half ago against the Jets, and star pass rusher Bradley Chubb unfortunately went down for the year last week. Those are their top two pass rushers, and they won't have them in this game. It also appears they will be without star cornerback Xavier Howard, who sustained a foot injury last week. Given those injuries, containing Bills quarterback Josh Allen will be no easy task. Josh Allen has been in a slump of late, but historically, Miami has shown no ability to contain him. In 11 regular season games against Miami, Josh Allen has 31 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, and a 110.8 passer rating. And on the other side, as we all know, Miami is quite possibly the most explosive offense in the NFL. However, they are banged up there as well. Not only will they be without star receiver Jalen Waddle this week, although he will be back in the postseason, they will also be without center Connor Williams, which leaves a pretty sizable hole in the interior. Regardless of those injuries, this will be a close game. That likely comes down to the final minutes. The Bills have been sluggish this season away from Highmark Stadium with a record of 3-5. Additionally, their offense hasn't looked right the past 2 weeks after the dominant 31-10 win over Dallas in Week 15. Still, I believe Buffalo will get it done here, given the circumstances and their recent history of success against Miami. I'll take Buffalo in this one, 24-20. And there you have it, my predictions for Week 18. If I'm correct on all of my picks, this is what the playoff picture will look like. On the AFC side, the 1 seed will be the 13-4 Baltimore Ravens. The 2 seed will be the 11-6 Buffalo Bills. The 3 seed will be the 10-7 Kansas City Chiefs. And the 4 seed will be the 10-7 Jacksonville Jaguars. And the wildcard teams, the 5 seed will be the 11-6 Cleveland Browns. The 6 seed will be the 11-6 Miami Dolphins. And the 7 seed will be the 10-7 Houston Texans. And on the NFC side, the 1 seed will be the 12-5 San Francisco 49ers. The 2 seed will be the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys. The 3 seed will be the 12-5 Detroit Lions. The 4 seed will be the 9-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the wildcard teams, the 5 seed will be the 11-6 Philadelphia Eagles. The 6 seed will be the 10-7 Los Angeles Rams. And the 7 seed will be the 9-8 Green Bay Packers. So that is all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Please sound off in the comments about how wrong I am. And next week, I will be back with my predictions for the wildcard round, as well as my predictions for the rest of the playoffs, given my picks for the wildcard round. Great to have you. See you later. Whatever it takes.